This weekend, my wife's niece and my niece obviously got married this weekend. And she was my wife's, Amanda's sister's daughter. She's 31 years old, beautiful girl. Had a beautiful wedding in Bonsall, California, 145 guests. And there's something very poignant that I learned from that. Um, Amanda wasn't there, and she loved her nieces. She had two nieces, and she loved them like they were her own daughter. But on her wedding day, she wasn't there because alcohol use disorder had taken over her life, and she had died 4.5 years ago. It's a very important thing to think about because it becomes such a narcissistic or a very self-centered type of activity when you're really caught in the grips of alcohol use disorder, and you don't think, and you don't even have the ability most of the time to realize the incredible void that you create if you do in fact pass on, or if you become to the point where you are incapacitated and really are a non-functioning human being. And it's very important to realize that before you ever get to that stage. Most people will never talk about this issue, but when you're gone, you create a huge void in the lives of other people. And before the wedding started, my son and I were walking around. It was at a resort, and they had set up a little memorial. My other niece had set this up, and they had pictures of people who were part of the family that weren't there. And my wife's picture was amongst the people who weren't there, like her parents and some other people. But and my son looked at me, and it really kind of struck me. He goes, Dad, if you think this is bad, wait till I get married, and Mom's not there. And it really really hits home because it doesn't end when that person is gone. It ends with all the life events when people pass on. Like my wife wasn't there when her father died 3 months after her, or her mother followed 10 months after that. She died very very shortly before her parents died. So she died before her parents, and I can't even imagine the pain that they felt uh, you know, with her passing. So it's a huge void, and these are things that people need to think about. If you're trying to recover, think about the people in your life and think of how it would make them feel if you were no longer here, and think about the events that you would miss. I think about the time when, in future, when my son gets married and he has a child, and that child's not going to know his grandmother. It's a very sad thought, but it's one that we all must live with for the rest of our lives. But one important takeaway from this is that my son and his two cousins, both his nieces, both his female cousins, none of them drink. And I think they've seen enough of it from both sides of the family, from their grandparents, and they realize that it's a family issue and has been for quite some time. But knowingly that none of them drink or actively drink, certainly not on any occasion, maybe on a special occasion like a wedding, they might have a glass of champagne, but in life, it's not part of their life and never will be. And they actively will not drink. And I think that's a wonderful thing to nip that in the bud, and the fact that it's not affecting the next generation. Well, that in itself is something to have gratitude for, because it's not going to continue for the next generations and the generations after that, because that family culture has been recognized, and it will no longer continue, and that alone is very comforting. So if you recognize, the family culture in your family, that your parents drink, your grandparents drink, siblings, cousins, or if it's, you're immersed in that during the holidays. The holidays are a big issue. Drinking doesn't have to be a part of it. And if you can recognize that it's a problem, or people in your family are struggling with it, it's time to address the situation and do something about it. Nip it in the bud, because you're not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for your current generation, the next generation, and certainly the generation after that. And a lot of people don't talk about that. I think it's an important issue. It should be a motivator to stop this god awful disease known as alcohol use disorder. And again, I have a complete coaching program. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. You can set up a Zoom call. The call is free. The course definitely is not, but we go over, it's got about 3.5 hours of content, deep dive into that content. And then I spend 9 weeks with you one-on-one. And then as long as you need me, I become your mentor, your life coach, and I keep you on track. And we set up a blueprint for the rest of your life to make sure that you can eradicate alcohol from your life and from your family's life, because it's a family disease. And I incorporate the family into all of this, which is just so essential. It's not just about the alcoholic. And again, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And again, link is in the bio for the Facebook group. Again, it's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. Just sign up for that. Again, thanks so much for listening.